I have my last guest and one of the most senior guests today with me, Commander Desai for the last, because I wanted to have a cerebral discussion for the last. अभी तक हमने सारा hands-on execution, security, doing it types किया. Uh, Pawan sir, from what I understand, is a business continuity and a risk consulting professional, wherein he is the co-founder of MitKat Risk Consulting, along with Samender sir, who is an ex-army officer. Pawan sir was a submariner, one of the toughest arms in the Indian Navy. So from there he has had a journey wherein ये लोग अब दिमाग लगाते हैं, reports create करते हैं, और जो बाकी लोग सोच नहीं पाते, आने वाले 1 साल 2 साल 5 साल 10 साल आगे का उनको बताते हैं कि भैया ये गड़बड़ भी हो सकती है. So they are giving the bird's eye view, and I am not shy of saying that those officers who choose to be in this field, and if they can undergo an 80-hour grind a week, then they are one of the most well paid, in spite of the fact that they may be from non-technical arms. So welcome on the talk, Pawan sir. मैं ज़्यादा तो नहीं बोल गया. Sir, आपसे मैं मेरा सबसे पहला सवाल ये होगा, because yours is one of the fields which has a very less understanding in the people's mind.
Right.
So what it is that you do, the task you and your teams perform in your job roles. I mean, what kind of, very general terms, what is business continuity and risk mitigation or risk consulting?
Okay, thank you. First of all, Vipul, I think really appreciate you calling me for this session. And I've been to a lot of global forums and a lot of sessions. At Friday at 9 o'clock, if you are able to hold up more than 100 people, it is commendable. First of all, I think a lot of kudos to you and the platform, and that shows the fraternity and how much they want to learn. And that is the biggest strength what we have. We should not lose that. I will like to start with that. Yeah, so I'll just my story because a lot of officers will be able to relate to the story. That is very, very important. I was a very mediocre officer. So if you, as a young officer, when you ask that, will you make it to the next years and this thing, will you be there? I always say, nahi, mera mushkil hai hona, kind of thing is always like that. So from that journey, when I left in 2004. Unfortunately, the kind of forums which we have now, or IIMs and nothing was there at that point of time. It was all left to you. You are on your own kind of a situation which was there. So it has tremendously improved. From that to, if you say 2018 years down the line, I think there is so much of support for veterans which is there. There's so much of awareness which is there in the country today, and the respect which is there, that everybody will have its own journey, but the life is slightly simpler, I'll say, which is there. But yes, the competition has also increased drastically on that. Just like to say that we have heard from Siddharth, we have heard from Mangesh, we have heard from the Stanley. I think all experts in their own domain. The only request, do not try to emulate one person. You have your own journey, and everybody will have a unique journey. It really doesn't matter how do you start with. Ultimately, it will matter that how do you end as. That is what is going to matter. And what domains we spoke about: physical security, guarding, we spoke about fraud risk management, we spoke about cyber security, then we are going to talk about business resiliency. All these are common sense. There's nothing more to it. I like to tell my story. When I joined Mahindra Special Services Group, I had a lot of youngsters with me who were smart MBAs and this thing. मैं उसको कुछ भी पूछता था, बोलते थे सर आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा because you are not CSSP, आपने CBCP नहीं किया, आपने ये नहीं किया है. मैं बोला रुको यार, एक काम करते हैं, 6 महीने रुक जाओ. I did all the certifications and said now you talk to me. And what I realized in all these training programs, that as Fauji's, as our what we have learned, it is only common sense. We just have to learn jargons on that. So whatever we see, risk management, business resiliency is nothing about contingency planning. In Forge, we have contingency planning for everything. We actually have to unlearn and make it less. So actually, we don't have to learn about business continuity. We have to unlearn about business continuity. We already know about business continuity. So it is not new for us. The war game, scenario planning exercise, we know all these things. It is not new to us on that thing. It is just have to jargonized in the corporate world. That is what all it is. And any officers with good common sense can actually ace this field on that. That is the only, I think, summary I like to say. That I don't want to make it, it is not about technical or non-technical officer. Anybody who can ask right questions, who can think about it that ye hua to kya hoga, what can go wrong, if there is a problem, what will I do? I think they will do brilliantly in these domains. I think first question which people you ask, I like to end up at that.
So, sir, what task do you typically perform for
Yeah,
clients?
you asked that. So we are a sort of a risk consulting company. So we do sort of a preemptive security. So if like Mangesh is there, suppose a bank security needs to be designed, or we need to do a risk assessment for which is there. If a company wants to come to India and they says, what are the areas where we should invest in, or is my area, what kind of risks which are there to that. So we provide these kind of inputs on that thing. So doing a risk assessment, doing a threat vulnerability. Again, a lot of jargons are there. I'm just putting this jargon so that you get familiar, people get familiarized with this. There is something called a threat vulnerability risk. It's nothing but assessing the location, your neighborhood analysis, what is the perimeter security, what is inside security, how is your structures, what can go wrong, what kind of threats are there, what kind of vulnerabilities are there, and how do you mitigate those things. You can do it by putting a process, you can do it by putting technology, you can do it by people, augmenting people or training people. So we do a lot of risk analysis. We also have something called as a preemptive security. We have a threat intelligence platform, which is we are the only Indian company to have a threat intelligence platform which gives you updates and alerts and advisory on if something goes wrong, how do you respond to that. So a lot of companies subscribe to that. All big global companies subscribe to that. Okay, today if something is happening in Mumbai on geopolitical situation or a social economic situation or on a natural disaster, if there is an earthquake, there is a flooding, there is a fire, whatever it can it hamper their people, can it hamper their locations, can it hamper the travel of the key employees. So we provide that kind of an alert and advisories to the which is there, and lots of trainings on safety and security. So if I cover the gamut, I'm not covering cybersecurity because Stanley has already covered that part of it on that thing. So that is what we provide to companies as a service on that thing. And based on the assessment, then you come out with gaps, then you come out with solutions, which is implemented either in form of a guarding company, what kind of deployment you will have, which all locations where the Siddharth and their company comes into play, or a technology company like Siemens, Honeywell, that this is how these many cameras will be required, or these are the places which will. So we design that and the technology companies implement that. So in a nutshell, that is what we do, more of advice and guidance and assessment and hand holding to improve the security posture. So that is what we do.
तो सर आप जो ये पूरा डिजाइन करते हैं इसमें एक दो चीजें और which I've heard and I am a novice to your industry, but since one keeps on speaking to officers in the industry,
Yes.
ये investigations और background checks और forensic security audit वगैरह ये कहाँ पर weave in होता है सर?
So again, what is said is anything which is working will have a problem. So any issues which somebody has bypassed logically or physically, if there is an issue which somebody has created, you need to investigate. And most of these investigations have to come. So background verification is required before you hire a person. All the projects we have been deployed, there is always a background verification which happens for all of us on that when we join. So when we join any company, there is incident checks happens, there is a background checks which happens, so that the risk. So again, it's a part of risk treatment or risk mitigation. Wrong hires are a huge cost or to any organization. So you take these kind of checks in terms of their background, in terms of their education qualification, in terms of कहाँ उन्होंने काम किया हुआ, reference checks, which is called as reference checks. उनके ऊपर कोई litigation, कोई case चल रहा है कि नहीं चल रहा है, all those kind of things, so that you see that wrong hires do not happen. But still the system is not foolproof because human mind is very, where it can go rogue, we don't know. What can lure a person, we don't know. What level people can go bad, we don't know. So when the people are already hired or you're working with thousands of vendors, there can be case of connivance, there can be case of bribery, there can be case of counterfeits, there can be so many issues which can happen. So most of the companies have these cases when they deal with so many people, their internal employees, their external vendors, or a connivance of between external and internal. It can be combination. Now, most of the companies, either they are not equipped to handle it internally, the investigations, or they want an independence so that a third party assess this or do the investigation. So that is where we come in, companies like us come into play. But it is a every Fauj, I'm thinking anybody who has spent some time in Fauj would have done some investigation or some kind of board of inquiry kind of a thing. So it is not something which is a rocket science. Yes, you need to use some tools for doing forensics analysis kind of thing, but it is not difficult to learn these kind of things, because ultimately it's about asking the right questions and finding out the chain of, or what you said, the chain of custody or chain of this thing, where did it go wrong, who was involved, what kind of a thing, and basically asking basic questions correctly. I think all can do it, and but in this current environment, investigation is big because every company faces this problem. कभी ना कभी किसी ना किसी को तो जरूरत पड़ता ही है on that. So it's a big field on that.
Sir, आप जो कर रहे हैं, there are a lot of big fours also and other companies also which are into this. So what are the skill sets you would say are required for an
I think great question. I think all are capable of doing it. There is no, you have to be good with your process. Thought process should be very, very clear. You should be able to correlate things. You should be able to, there are certification. I'll come to certification later, but certification doesn't give you knowledge. It gives you a stamp on that thing, which is there. If you're a CFE, which is a certified fraud examiner, it basically gives you that yes, you are capable of doing some things in, like agar officer hai, agar hamare paas rank hai, there's a perception which is created that I'm a major or I'm a lieutenant commander or something like. It's a perception which gets created, which is a tick mark on that. But is all the majors equally good or all the lieutenant commanders equally good? That's not the case on that thing. So that doesn't, rank doesn't give you the knowledge. Knowledge is given by the experiences what you have. Can you connect the dots? Are you able to articulate problem correctly? Are you able to decipher what is going on? So a lot of that is common sense. I'm going to simplify the things. It is not as complicated as we think kind of thing. So certification doesn't give you the, certification helps you in finding a job, but certification is not going to keep you in the job. It is all about your experiences, your personal skills and your capabilities, which is going to make you in the job and grow to the next level of that.
What would be the typical skill sets, sir? I would say.
Okay, so fraud risk management, if you have typically most of the skills like investigation kind of a skill, interrogation skill sets, if you have, if you can read numbers well, if you can go through data of GBs and decipher that from that, kahan gadbad ho raha hai, kahan problem ho sakta hai. If those kind of skill set, of course, with the certification like CFA and all those which augments to the thing, those skills are good enough if you want to get into investigation fields on that.
Okay. Although, as you said, that certifications are not going to be defining in terms of success in the career, but from an entry perspective for officers, especially those who are looking to transit, what certifications would you recommend?
Okay, so now first of all, you will have to decide what is anybody who is transitioning. There are three areas which you want to look for. One is what is the trend? What is happening in the industry today? If everybody is talking about AI, that is an area which is it is a huge definition. I don't want to get into AML. It's a Pandora's box, so I don't want to get into that. But what is the trend which is happening? So don't take a skill which is 20 years old and want to get into the market, because that is not which is selling today. So one is the what kind of trend which is there. So if technology is a trend, if everything is automation is a trend, learn something on that first. Second is what are your skills? You're a technical officer, you're a non-technical officer. What are your basic skills and focus on that? And third is your passion. And passion is very individual. I will have my passion, Vipul will have his own passion. So if you are able to combine passion, skills, and the trends, well, I think you will be able to find your areas. Exactly, because the typical question if you ask any Fauji said, "Aap kya kar sakte ho?" "Main sab kuch kar sakta hu." That is a strength as a Fauji, but if you go in a civil world, is a weakness, because you are entering a middle management on that thing. You need to say, "I'm good at maybe HR, or I'm good at admin, or I'm good at investigations, or I'm good at something." You'll have to find your niche surely on that thing. If you are able to do some introspection on your skills, if you are able to do some what trends are going on and your passion, you will be able to find your There are 2 or 3 potential areas of which is there. Now, based on this potential area, you should get certification. So if you like investigation, go for CFE, which is a certification. If you don't like investigation, don't do CFE. I have seen most of the officers do PMP. I don't know why. Is that, are you going to get into execution? Are you going to get into project management? If that is not your strength, don't do that, because extra certification is a disadvantage. If you go to any company and says, I have 5 certifications, I have a CFE, I am a PMP, I've done Six Sigma also, I've done this thing, it shows there is a lack of clarity on what you want to do in life on that thing. So identify 2 or 3 specific areas, related areas. So suppose you say, I'm good with cybersecurity is a trend and that is going to be there for next 10, 15, 20 years. Do some certification on that. As Stanley has mentioned, do ISO 27001, do CISA, do CISSP kind of a certification. If you like investigation as a field, forensic as a field, do something in CFE, do something related to that. If you feel, no, that is not my area, I want to get into physical security, that Mangesh has given a great this thing and he is really passionate about that and he has done really, really well in this field. If you want to do CPP, do CPP, that is a physical security area. If you want to get into business continuity, do CBCP, do ISO 22301. But be very clear, having 4 certification is not a, identify 1 or 2 areas. Yes, I can understand. All of us have been in your position at some point of time in life. Clarity नहीं होता इस time पे. But instead of thinking on 10 areas, at least shortlist 2 or 3 areas. Get some certification on that areas. That will help. But that only you can talk to people, but ultimately you will have to decide what areas you want to excel on. Vipul, hope I have answered that question.
Yes, sir. I mean, certifications wala to hua, but I would like to know in terms of, and more focused on your industry.
Yes.
Since BCP and risk now is getting a lot of traction and it does have, it attracts, I would say, officers who probably are also quite studious and who can work with a lot of data and a lot of reports and a lot of writing, etc. So what would be a typical career path for an officer, let's say, who joins at 35 and then at 45?
Great. I think this threat intelligence in corporates was not a career option maybe a few years back. But now what is happening is there's a concept called duty of care. That is basically I need to know where my employees are. If they have been traveling, I need to track them. I need to know whether they are safe, not safe. Suppose they have been traveling in Turkey and suppose this earthquake happened. If I have to evacuate people, if a war happened in Ukraine, what kind of supply chain do we have? Are we going to be impacted in a business kind of a thing? So threat intelligence or risk intelligence has become a strategic business enabler in last few years. There were not many command centers in India. Now, so many command centers because of cost arbitrage as well as the kind of skill sets what we have in India. Globally, command centers are moving to India. That is especially for the short service officers. I'll say if you become a command center head for a global company, it straight away put you in the regional or a country level role. But you should like to write, read, analyze. If that is not your strength, that is, it should not. But if that is a strength, what is happening in geopolitical sense, because you will be able to add a lot of value to the business. If you can say that these are the things, these are the telltale signs which is happening in Syria today. If you are investing in Syria, these are the controls, these are the actions we should take, or these are the risks which are taking, these are the areas which are potential area, which was people never bothered about these a few years back or a decade back. But now they are in the limelight, they are in the front, which is there. So a lot of officers who like to read, write, analyze, correlate, this thing is an amazing area to get into that. This is about a threat intelligence kind of thing. Risk analysis is a very more conventional thing that you go location, you say what kind of security is there. It is more broader for these, more people can do that activity. Again, a very strategic thing, because that was not something which was because of certain issues which has happened in past. Like if you see a case of Singur, where Tata Motors have to move the entire plant to Gujarat kind of thing. It was a geopolitical, I think a strategic issue which happened, and because the risk analysis was not done correctly on that, which was so now all these things have been taken very, very seriously. Value of life is very, very high. So these things are very, very serious. So you can get into a risk analysis, which is a broader kind of this thing is there. BCP is slightly different than risk analysis or threat intelligence. BCP is more about contingency. So for Fauji, it is more about contingency planning kind of thing. Unfortunately, most of the BCP is dominated by IT people because it's all about IT replication, IT DR, and that kind of thing. But if you really go down deep into that, it is all about a common sense of if something goes wrong in a location, how are you going to bounce back? How are you going to have your critical operations back up and running? So most of the Fauji's are really well suited for BCM roles or on that thing. It's only that they will have to learn something about IT, ITDR, and it is not that difficult. So all non-technical officers don't get hustled by we are non-technical. It doesn't matter. Civil world, it is not what you think non-technical is not what civil understands as non-technical. All the Fauji's are well equipped to be taking a BCM kind of roles, and because the BCM has three aspects. One is the IT part of it. One is the business process which business leaders have to take care, and third is the crisis management. And the crisis management is where most of the Fauji will really excel well on that thing. So if you can excel well in one domain, learning other two domains is not that difficult on that thing. So BCM is also an area, and after COVID, people have realized the value of BCM, business continuity management, and a lot of strategic roles are on offer for these kind of domains. And most of the Faujis really fit well. They have to just learn something and jargonize the IT and something they need to learn about that. And I think they'll really do well in that, because I think most of the Faujis really excel when crisis happens, which is not the case with civilians. They will run away when the crisis happens. The only people who stand usually are Faujis. Maybe they are physical security heads or whatever, and that has been our experience and my experience over the last 18 years in corporate. For crisis hota hai, tab real value aata hai on that thing, and that is what we need to capitalize on. I think that's what I.
Sir, मैं आपसे एक बात और जानना चाहूँगा. Is it really true that people in your domain have to work 80-100 hour weeks?
Yeah, फौज में नहीं करते थे क्या? When you are deployed on a mission, किसने नहीं किया है? बोला इसमें I see 103 people who has not worked 18 hours in a day. I think it's myth which is there. So I think everybody has worked and everybody is capable of working on that thing. How do you manage your time well? How do you manage your team well? How do you manage the environment well? That is what it is all about. There is no 9 to 5 job. कहीं नहीं होता है. कहीं पे भी नहीं होता, फौज में भी नहीं होता था, बाहर भी नहीं होता है. It is what, how do you work effectively for 8 hours in a day? If you are inefficient in fauj, you will be inefficient outside also. So I don't think so. I've been asked this question a lot. Yes, but ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि आपको 18 घंटा काम करना पड़ता है या आपको 8 घंटा काम. There have been days where days are very lean. There are days where you have to work hard. It all depends on. आप पेट्रोलिंग के लिए गए, आप मैं भी सेल किया है, जब 21 दिन 30 दिन सेल करना पड़ता है. यू हैव टू वर्क राउंड द क्लॉक. अगर इंजन रूम में खराब हो गया, यू हैव टू वर्क. देयर इज नो, वहां पे तो हम पूछते नहीं था सैटरडे छुट्टी है, संडे छुट्टी है. फौज में तो कभी पूछा नहीं. तो व्हाई शुड यू आस्क इन कॉर्पोरेट दिस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स? If you have to excel, you have to be best at what you are doing. You have to do what is needed to be done. I think timing is immaterial. I think if I don't know, I have answered the question, but
so मुझे समझ आ गया कि बहुत काम करना पड़ता है.
नहीं करना पड़ता है तो that's okay, but it depends on. इसे आपको ग्रो करना है तो करना पड़ेगा. It's a very individual. It's very individual. There's no yardstick or a benchmark. आप भी फ्राइडे को काम कर रहे, क्यों कर रहे हो ये यार? Because that is your passion. I think.
Sir, एक सवाल तो, because I be a business person, I tend to ask this question. Is the output equivalent to the input? If I put in 80 hours, then my expectations also would be there. So in terms of monetary output, in terms of job satisfaction, does BCP and risk continuity and threat assessment, the consulting industry, does it give that kind of a output?
100% on that thing. Now, हमारे expectation unrealistic होते हैं कई बार. That is a problem because we think we work a lot, or we think add a value a lot. That's why. So the attitude of demand that I should be getting because I have done something in past, that is a problem, and that is a roadblock for most of us. Because I have spent 10 years, I should be at this level. I'm at 20 years, I should be at this level kind of thing. Corporate world is very, very, I think, fair in terms of remuneration. If you add value, you will be remunerated. There can be cases, I'm not saying sab jagah problem hota hai, but I think that's a very fair system. And the advantage of corporate world is if you think you are not remunerated well, अब फौज में तो यार इंडियन आर्मी में अच्छा नहीं किया तो पाकिस्तान आर्मी तो ज्वाइन नहीं कर सकते ना, बट कॉर्पोरेट में इन्फोसिस में अच्छा नहीं हो तो विप्रो ज्वाइन कर सकते हो. देयर इज नो प्रॉब्लम, देयर इज नो रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन दैट. सो इट्स वेरी परसेप्टिव, बट आई थिंक इट इज very fair system. You should not have very unrealistic expectation from what you are adding a value. If you are adding a value, people, there are smart people outside, they will understand the value and you are compensated accordingly. And people are doing phenomenally well in this space. I'll summarize with that.
Before I let you go, sir, my last question. Any parting advice for officers who are now transitioning and should they be joining this industry? If yes, why?
Okay. A great question. I have been in consulting industry for 18 years. A lot of people say, as you said, 18 घंटे काम करना पड़ता है. I love this. I am not working 18 hours, but I love this. So this industry, unlike a corporate, it's a very ambiguous because it is driven by what client wants. So your priorities are not decided by you. It is decided by clients. It is decided by external environment. Something change. Ukraine ने war कर दिया. Now the whole strategy has to change because of that. So anybody who likes a lot of clarity, who likes borders, के मेरा JD होना चाहिए, Monday to Friday काम होना चाहिए, मेरा promotion कब होगा, क्या है? Anybody who likes that should not join consulting industry. Anybody who thrives in ambiguity, कि चलते हैं, देख लेंगे क्या होगा, they will flourish in this industry on that thing. So wrong person for a wrong industry is a disaster. And I have seen a lot of Fauji's who have been disastered in this industry, and I have seen a lot of Fauji's who have flourished tremendously in this industry. So it depends on what mindset you have. A fixated mindset, you need a lot of clarity. This is not the industry for you. You thrive in ambiguity, you thrive in new challenges, you like to talk to different people, new people every time, different industries. This is the industry for you on that. So, but जो people have on the call, they will have to decide what mindset they are. There is no wrong mindset. Is it right industry or wrong industry for you? That's all summarized on.
You gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find